Hello, beautiful people. Thank you so much for being here. In part 2 of my episode with Tegan, we talk about all things related to mediumship and life on the other side. For those of you that haven't watched episode 1, Tegan Judd is a psychic medium and an energetic mentor. She's from Australia and she's been a digital nomad for the past 3 years, traveling the world. She's incredible and I'm so grateful to have her on my show. I think this episode is really powerful because in Western society we fear death in so many ways, and I hope this episode opens you up to seeing the power of connecting to life on the other side. So enjoy. I'm sending love and have a beautiful day. I want to switch a bit to talking about being a psychic, being a medium, because I think it's something that people have so much fear about sometimes. They're like,
I
"Oh,
know.
I don't want to get a reading. Like, that's so like, wow, like, what is she gonna tell me?" And like, oh, that stuff doesn't exist. And there's all this programming about it, which is another tangent we can go down. Maybe you could just start with a bit about your journey to realizing that power you have, and also like how the other side started to communicate through you.
Oh my gosh, I love this question so much. There's a lot of fear around it. The thing is, as well, is like what I share with my clients is like, is that fear coming from the fact of like, you don't have any control right now. I don't have any control. I don't know what's going to come through.
Yeah.
But you have to trust. I really set a really clear intention. So the way that I read is I don't read fear-based. I'm not sure if you've experienced readings in the past where they have been a little bit fear-based. I have definitely experienced that kind of an older school traditional type of way of reading.
What does a fear-based reading look like? Or like, what is that?
So from my experience, a fear-based reading, and I've experienced a couple before, which is they're actually going to bring in information that is going to feed more fear, like delivering it in the way of like, oh, no, you're not on the right path. Oh, no, it's looking pretty bad if you go down this way. And breeding more fear. No, you're not in the right relationship. Oh, no, that's not. See, even I'm getting the thumbs up. Spirit's like, they're fear-based. There's a way to deliver information as well. You know, even saying things like, oh, if a spirit's stuck. I don't believe spirits get stuck. I think that there is a processing time. I like to think of it like a soul will leave the body, goes up to heaven administration, and sometimes they have to fill out some paperwork. Some souls fill out their paperwork quite quickly, and others may take a little bit of time.
What is the paperwork? What is that like a term for?
It's just my term that I use, but the paperwork I like to say is if you need to have any closure in this lifetime, if there's things that you didn't deal with potentially before your soul had passed over, you know, it's like a lot of what I notice, if I connect with soul babies or if I connect with elderly people, they generally will cross over very quickly. Their process is really quickly. They process the paperwork very quickly because, you know, especially a baby, they come in and they know that they're coming in at that time and then they're going to leave this world at that time. So they're coming in and leaving with that beautiful peace. But sometimes a soul may leave and they're just in so much shock that they try to stay earthbound as long as they can, and then they're getting pulled up, and then so they sort of go through like an administration process.
Also, sometimes I know that there's this like decision process of like actually choosing, like, do I want to come back or do I not?
Yeah. So it's like the soul can still get to choose, and they can choose if they want to hold on a little bit longer or if they want to let go of some things and kind of come to peace. You know, I've had some souls come through and they are really eager to connect with their past loved one and say they're sorry and like all of these things, and which is so beautiful because that allows that closure and for them to go up. But you know, if they can't connect, they can sometimes carry this guilt, you know, and they're carrying that frequency as well. Yeah. Does that kind of answer that question?
Yeah.
I could really go into this in so many different ways. And I think there's so many different perspectives of like what happens with the soul, what happens in the afterlife and everything like that. And I just think it's everyone goes to a certain place. You know, if they had heavy energy when they were here, they get the choice to process it and they can continue to process it. And when a soul comes back through, you can tell if they have or if they haven't.
And how many times do you think we've all been here? 'Cause I know I have an old soul. Is there a number for it that's like the range, or is it just there's no numbers?
No, I don't think there's any numbers. I think yeah, I think as many times as you need to continue to come back. We have our soul agreement. So before we come into this world, we decide what kind of job we want to do, what kind of partner we want to have, and which partner. And when we're up there, we go, okay, this is the partner that I want to connect with because then these future souls will come through. And I feel like that's all created before we come in. But I wouldn't know. I feel like there's lots of past lives we have and lots of times we come back through. But yeah, my journey with spirit has been a wild one. Like most people that go through this path, they have a colorful path, I find. And mine was also very colorful. I started connecting with spirit when I was 6. So around 6 years old is sort of when the veil of the 3D world starts to really encroach in a child. That's why they go through so many different processes. And you can sort of notice that around that 5 to 6 years old, they go through a lot of shifts, a lot of changes. And that is when, as I said, they may stop talking about their imaginary friends then. They may stop being so empathic. Some kids continue to be empathic, but some not so much. And so when I was 6 years old, when the 3D world would generally really encroach on a child, mine was really blown wide open because my father had passed in an accident. And so I was connecting with him my whole life, still continue to connect with him. He's my number one guide. And yeah, and so I have always continued to connect with him. And then through school, I always really struggled because I would see spirits and I would see energies all the time. I wouldn't be sure how to manage them. And that was also something that as a child, or a young girl was definitely hard to manage. And my mum did such a beautiful job with taking me to different healers, and I would have different attachments and different heavy energies attached to me. So mum would help me clear that. And then I went down a very colorful path and made my way full circle back out. So at one point I went, I'm not doing this. Fuck all these spirits. I want to stop fucking hearing all this stuff. Stop talking to me. And then I slowly started to activate it again. And then I received a calling from, as I said, what I would call God, which said, you are to deliver my messages of love and clarity. And from that moment, that's all I have done. And it's been really beautiful being in this purpose and supporting and holding people through some of the toughest times of their lives, grief, sadness, change, you know.
So when you channel specific ancestors as opposed to, I know it's all one, but how do you allow them to come through? Like, because I know everyone kind of has a different way of doing it. Do you just sit and like connect with that person and then it will just come?
Yeah, pretty much. So I actually feel a lot of things. Spirit will start communicating with me through the body. So I actually feel a lot of things somatically. So if someone has anything going on through the body, I will be able to identify what's going on, and then spirit will just sort of start communicating that way. But yeah, look, I work with my guides. They always come forward. And then I will call on the sitters, past loved ones, to come forward and connect with their higher self. And I only bring forward messages for their highest good. And that's coming back to that fear-based type of reading, you know, sitting around that crystal ball and pulling all the cards. And it's not like that. I rarely work with cards. It's it's actually very intuitive. It's really bringing those messages for the highest good of you.
And is it always happening, or are you very like powerful now that you can kind of set those boundaries of like, I don't want any voices? Or like, for example, if you're having a conversation with me, will it sometimes be so strong, like that something will be trying to come through and you didn't ask for that?
Yes and no. It's a yes and no. My boundaries are very strong now.
Mm,
They used to not be, and I would be exhausted all of the time. It is not good to have open boundaries. You know, there was a
yeah.
part of me that thought, oh, the more open I am, you know, I have some friends that some say to me, who might have had someone that passed, and it's like, oh, you know, if my past loved one comes forward, can you let them in? And I'm like, I actually don't do that. It's like when I have that space for you and I'm holding you in that space, I will
Mm,
let whoever needs to come through. But if not, I will have, trust me, I will have everyone wanting to come through. So I do have
exactly.
very clear boundaries. But in saying that, sometimes there's something that comes forward and I need to say it.
Yeah.
I intuitively read people. I had a client the other week that her son had passed, and he actually came through the night before when I was journaling something for my business, and he came through, presented as an 8-year-old boy, but he actually died when he was 27. And he came through the night before and he visited me in my dreams and he showed me his story so that I could hold his mum. Normally, sometimes they come through the night before. And I said, you know, I said to that soul, I said, I'm seeing your mum tomorrow. And he said, yes, you're seeing my mum. And can you deliver these kind of messages? But other times I have that set boundary. It's like as soon as we get on that call, it's starting to channel then.
Yeah. That's interesting. And how do you hold all that grief? Like, is it just about what we were speaking before of just like having really powerful tools, or just like releasing after you
Yeah.
do the calls?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Releasing, clearing my space, you know, just because I'm a psychic, like I have probably stronger boundaries than the, you know, day-to-day energetic boundaries, but it is like after a reading, I physically actually dust myself off and
Mm,
close it. And I say, thank you. Thank you for my guides coming through. Thank you for bringing this sitter to me. Thank you for me connecting to them. I give my thanks and I say, and now whatever's no longer serving me can leave. Any attachments can leave. I have had some readings which are a lot of grief. And sometimes I get off the call and I cry.
mm,
Um, and I allow myself to cry. You know, some
mm.
people might be like, "Oh, you're attached to it." It's like, no, I that was really fucking sad.
Well, crying's
I'm a
a relief.
human.
Crying's a
Oh,
relief as well, yeah.
I will cry in my readings sometimes if I just because I'm binding with the sitter's energy, so I completely feel all their emotion.
Yeah.
So if they're feeling really sad, I sometimes can't help it. But there was one in particular I had to get off, and I just cried and cried and cried. And then I had a shower and I washed it all off and you
Mm,
know, but yeah, that's the thing is like it is holding a lot of grief. It's beautiful though, because the grief gives us so much. Like if we just allow ourselves, I have some clients that have lost babies or loved ones and they have not cried.
mm.
And
Well, I think
you know,
it's such a
some
big problem in society as a whole is that like we're not taught. Not that there's one way to process grief, but like we don't know how to do it. We
mm,
don't allow ourselves to do it because it's like, no, you got to keep going. Like you can be sad for
mm.
you can have a week off work and then be fine again, you know?
But
And
you've
then
got to be strong, but you've got to be
yeah.
strong.
And then as other people, as people wanting to support people, you also don't know what to say. So a lot of people when they're going through something hard, like it's just such a weird disconnect when really it's such a beautiful opportunity to come closer to each other.
Hmm. Yeah. One thing I say, and this is not just because I am a psychic, I say to people, I do not care if you come back and see me, but please, like if you have lost a past loved one, if someone has just died, reach out to a medium, whoever you feel called to,
Mm,
because I did that through my journey. And this is why half the reason why I'm so accepting of my dad's death, and I've been accepting of his death for a really long time, a very long time. Yeah, of course I would love to have him back and maybe, get to have a gas bag and get to know each other on that level. But it's like, am I at peace with it? Fucking oath, that was his life. I chose him. I chose a father that was going to pass at that age.
Mm.
So I think that if you can connect with someone that can be that bridge for you,
Mm-hmm.
trust me, like if you can take anything from this call, take that.
Yeah,
Honestly.
so powerful, so powerful. And I believe and I know that our ancestors are always trying to connect with us, because once we
Mm,
realize that how much support, how supported we are, we no longer feel alone. We have an army of
exactly.
people here to support us. So for people that don't understand what chills are, people don't understand the ways in which spirit is trying to connect with us all the time, what would you say are things to pay attention to?
Start with the signs. Start with the signs, asking for exterior signs, numbers, flowers, not crystal, sorry, numbers like flowers, like anything.
Well, yeah, it could be anything. You just say like, show me this, show me an orange
Yeah.
flower, show me this, show me that.
I just
Mhm.
had to keep having crystal come to my mind then. And I'm like, okay, we're going with crystal. But it's like, show me, like, ask for that. And then once you get that sign, don't question the sign. That's the
Yeah,
one thing that I see is people will go, oh, I got 4 signs today, but I'm still not sure. And I'm like, and then they'll book a reading with like a psychic or anything like that. And I'm like, don't hand your power away.
yeah.
You should know. I will, if someone says that to me, I'll say, I'm not going to tell you
Yeah, and
because you
that
need to.
I think that's a problem that like especially women, like we're so intuitive, but then we're like, oh no, that was just a fluke, or like, oh no, like I don't know if I can fully trust that. I'm gonna go with what my mind says. And that's something like I've been struggling with, because like I know I have so many gifts, but our minds are so powerful and they're so programming that we just like doubt ourselves. Like I hear messages and then I'm like, oh, but is that actually like, then we
Was
come
that
back
me?
to our
Was that
mind.
my.
I think a lot of it is just about trust.
Mm. And even as you say that, it's like you know how powerful you are. And that's something I've experienced as well, because in this space, you have someone sitting in front of you that you're reading for them. You're telling them and connecting with their deepest, darkest parts of themselves and sharing that back to them can be very intimidating, for sure. It can be very intimidating. And especially if someone's a little bit closed off to it. And that's the thing. It's like I have to trust, even if I get off that call and go, did I, maybe they didn't respond to something I said. Maybe I said something and they're like, oh, no, that's not true. And I just go, now I'm at the point where I'm like, move on next. They will message me in a few weeks or a couple of months. And of course, that'll be somewhat connected, or they'll get off and they'll realize that. But I do not buy into that anymore. If someone's like going to receive something and they're like, oh, that's not really true, I'm like, cool, next, move on.
Well,
I just
yeah,
have to trust that
yeah.
that message that comes through is like, that's what they need to fucking hear.
Exactly, and that comes into everything. It's like everything that we're hearing, every conversation we have is like perfectly timed. Because I think about it, like a conversation changes your life, and if you hadn't had it at that time, the whole trajectory of your life would be different. Which is why I was like, I'm gonna start a podcast, because it's like you never know
Mm.
when someone's gonna like click on it and listen, and it can change their path. Like they book a call with you, and then that leads to a whole different
Mm.
pattern in their lives.
It's funny that you even say that, because I actually got an email from a client the other day, and there was actually one thing in that reading that my ego mind wanted to question, because when I said it, she didn't really respond to receiving of it. She was a bit like, oh, that's not really true. I don't really see that for me. And I just kind of actually kept going on about it. Like I really kept going on about it. Anyway, she sent me a message. All of that has now fallen into place. She is now considering this new opportunity that I said was in the reading, and she was like, no, that's not right. And now she's actually considering that opportunity. And she said in the message, you've just changed the trajectory of my life.
Mm.
Now, that's not coming from a place of like, that is literally coming from a place if I held myself back
Mm.
based off her energy, how she was a bit like, oh, that's not as right. Imagine
Mm.
how much I would have affected. She's literally now going to be on her path and impact hundreds, if not thousands of women.
Yeah, and also it's like you have to ask yourself, like, what part of me is rejecting this? Is it my smaller self or is it my higher self? Is it my
Mm.
ego? Is it fear? Like, what's actually speaking here?
Mm.
And if it's not your higher self, then I'd say don't listen to that.
Yeah,
Listen to
it can
the
fuck off.
yeah. And then another thing about like talking to a psychic, I know a lot of people are like, I don't want to know about my future. Whether that's because of fear, whether that's because people want to just like see what happens. What would you say to that? Because I personally love it. If I like, I would just spend all my time speaking to different
Yeah,
healers because I'm like, I love this stuff.
yeah.
But what would you say to that?
Look, I can only really speak on my own perspective, obviously, on it. And
Yeah.
the way that I read, I am not just future based. I am like a whole entire snippet of your whole life. I'm going
Mm.
to touch on things that are coming in, but I really set a really beautiful intention because sometimes we hold on to things. Like, you know, if I was to say, like, let's say, for example, Talia, you're in a relationship and that relationship's good, it's not toxic or anything like that, but maybe in a year's time, it might go its separate ways. If I was to sit there and say to you, oh, you guys are going to break up in a year's time, well, you're just going to hold on to that, aren't you?
Yeah.
And then that's what happens. And this is where I guess it comes back to that fear based. It's like
Yeah.
you're just going to hold on to that. So then I've just intervened in your own power and your own reality. And so
Yeah.
this is where I be mindful of like what is said. Of course, I will say to people if they are in danger or things like that, yes, you need to leave your relationship. But at the end of the day, you have control over your life. You have free will. If there's things that you still need to learn, you'll choose when you can break up. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah. And I think that's an interesting thing is like different patterns can play out. So as a psychic, do you see the different things that can play out based on choices, or is there only one thing that you see?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can see various, and I actually will share that with people, with my sitter, is I will show the different timelines of what you choose to see. What you choose, you can go down this path and you get A, B, and C. You can
Mm.
go down this path and you get A, B, and C, and you can go down this path and you can get A, B, and C.
It's crazy that you have the ability to see all of those.
Yeah, it's great. And then I go, you get to fucking choose. I'm not going to sit here and go, this is the one that you have to take, because I could say that. You have to do some healing work. You know, it's like some people come to psychics and they want to know when they're going to have a baby or when Mr. Right is going to come in. And I'm like, well, the man that you want to come in or the woman that you want to come in as your potential partner, you want all of these things, but you're actually not an energetic match for that kind of person.
Mm.
So it's like, so he's not going to come in unless you like raise your vibration.
So you see one timeline of that happening and then one timeline of them not doing the work and a lower vibration partner
Yep.
coming in or no one coming in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You have the choice and you have the power. And that's the thing with healing and with gurus and all these things is that it's all about your own intuition and your own gifts and connecting with the light that you are.
And that is the most important thing for me. That is a part of my mission, is to actually activate people in their own intuition. It's all good for me to sit here and say, this is all the stuff that's coming in for you, but you need to know it and see it for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what a good psychic, a good healer will tell you. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, maybe this is a good place to end. What do you feel?
I think so, Talia. Oh my gosh, this has been so magic. I have loved this.
I know. I mean, I could talk for ages about it, but I want to honor your time and it felt like it was a good place to close because it's all about coming back to the wisdom within and taking that journey to doing that because that's you being in your power and living life according to your purpose, your higher self, and light and love.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So much wisdom. Thank you so much, Talia, for holding this beautiful space and having this incredible podcast. I'm so grateful for you. And thank you for my guides for bringing us together. This has been so beautiful.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you for bringing us together, my guides and your guides, and yes, and so beautiful. Thank you so much. And yeah, go book a session with Tegan. I mean, I actually need to book a session with you. I was
Yes.
just like, when you're talking, I was like, oh my God, why haven't I done a session with her? But I have friends who've done it and they're like, she's amazing. So I was like, I just want to talk to her. But now I'm like, no, I need a reading. I need a reading.
Oh my gosh, amazing. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Talia. And yeah, everyone that's listening, just allow yourself to feel everything that you're feeling. Know that you are safe in your own body to feel, to see, and yeah, just be open.
Yeah, I know we touched on a lot of things and that can be overwhelming. And I think we already said this is that the first step is just being open. And honestly, there's breadcrumbs and you're going to be guided.
Yay!
Yay! Oh my gosh, this episode is just amazing. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was so special for me because a lot of my journey began with contemplating life on the other side, because I think that's such an interesting place to reflect, to learn about what life actually means and what life is. And yeah, my journey really propelled when I first spoke to a medium. I'm going to talk more about this part of my journey on another episode, but I hope you do go speak to a medium and do begin to get curious from this episode if you aren't already, about life on the other side and speaking to psychics and all of these things, because they can really inform you and change your life in so many beautiful ways. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And I hope you have a beautiful day. Bye.